Poland, due to its unique geopolitical position, has two options: grow powerful with every passing day, or simply perish. Of course, the world is hardly that black and white. However, given the country's turbulent communist past and traditional rows with Russia, Poland keeps adding to its military and economic power. The recent escalation in Ukraine has taught the Poles to silently add to their prowess. In fact, some experts believe that is the next European superpower in the making, leaving behind big names like Germany and the United Kingdom. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Let's get started. The historical context. Like every other Eastern European nation, the rise of Poland started with the fall of communism in June 1989. On June 4th of the same year, the Polish Solidarity Trade Union won partially free democratic elections to officially end the reign of the communist regime in the country. The victory was a landslide. The people of Poland had chosen to live under a liberal democracy that promised free markets and private ownership. However, the fall of communism in Poland intensified the economic decay in the country. During the 1980s, the country's natural reserves were insufficient and exports were extremely low. What's really curious is that despite a centrally planned economy, the private sector had increased its production by 14% from 1981 to 1985. Of course, the members of the government, or the Polish United Workers' Party, didn't like that very much, but the facts were hard to ignore too. During the same years, the national production had dropped by 0.2%. Poland's over-industrialization had its economy in shambles. The government was unable to support a large number of industries in the country as its foreign debt piled up, and pumping money into the industrial sector became a major issue. By 1989, the country was suffering through negative GDP growth and hyperinflation. The Consumer Price Index, or the rate of inflation in the country, was 620%. In the aftermath of the 1989 elections, the CPI fell to 250% in 1990 and 60% in 1991. So of course, the boost in private enterprise was working like a charm for Poland, but there was still a long way to go. Poland joins the European Union. Things changed when the Poles joined the EU in 2004. The country opened itself for significant economic growth. So far, Poland has shown 3 decades of steady economic growth in the European Union. Despite multiple challenges like the 2008 economic crisis and multiple periods of recession in Europe, the Polish economy hasn't faltered even once since 1989. In 2018 alone, Poland's GDP per capita increased by 81% since 2003. If we adjust for purchasing parity, GDP per head in Poland is now £28,200 compared to £35,000 in the United Kingdom and £39,800 in Germany. Now, these numbers might seem like the UK and Germany are far ahead of Poland, and you won't be entirely incorrect. But considering Poland's current growth trajectory, it is on track to surpass the United Kingdom by 2030. Two major events could have derailed Polish economic growth in the recent past: the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. We can't argue that these two unprecedented events haven't affected the biggest economies in Europe. However, the European Commission confirmed that Polish economic growth in 2022 was pretty stable. The forecast showed a growth of 4.9%, a figure that the UK and Germany would be desperate to keep. The Telegraph has visualized the Polish economic miracle in an interesting graph. According to the newspaper itself, since the millennium, Poland's real GDP per capita has more than doubled. By contrast, GDP per capita in Britain, France, and Germany grew between 15% and 24% over the same period. As of now, the Polish economy is one of the fastest growing within the EU. Plus, it has shown remarkable micro-growth too. Many economic experts have noticed that the country has a strong entrepreneurial structure that emerged as a response to the authoritative communist state. Since the EU membership gives the Poles the freedom to trade and move within the continent, Polish locals have established strong trade ties with their partners. An interesting graph shows that the Polish working class is likely to work more than major EU economies like Germany or France. These statistics show that, on average, the Polish youth is likely to put more work into their growing economy than their European counterparts. And it makes total sense. The Polish government is always bringing new business into the country. According to McKinsey's Poland 2025, Europe's New Growth Engine report, Poland is a leading destination for outsourced or offshore business services. The growth of its business service sector has outpaced the rest of Central Europe and has grown 3 times faster than India. Recently, the government has reoriented on hosting big businesses like the South Korean giant LG. Similarly, it also boosted lithium battery production in the country to respond to the ever-increasing global demand. In the production alone, Poland surpassed the United States of America. Plus, Ukraine has expanded its process manufacturing and food sector as well. The process manufacturing sector, encompassing auto manufacturing, furniture, food processing, textiles, and chemicals, is growing rapidly. Moreover, Poland will possibly overtake Ukraine as Europe's food hub. With the 4th largest amount of arable land in the EU, Poland is becoming an attractive food supplier for Europe due to Western Europe's increasing urbanization. Many Polish companies have invested in modern production line infrastructure, especially in dairy, meat, frozen food, and beverages. So, it's a no-brainer that the Polish economy is growing exponentially. It is expected that by 2030, Poland will be one of the 20 largest economies in the world, and it's going to achieve that glorious goal by making the best use of its refugee influx. Polish ties with Ukraine. Another markup of its high-performing economy is the number of Ukrainian refugees that have crossed the Polish borders. To put things into perspective, more than 11.5 million Ukrainians have found a safe haven in Poland, and almost 1.4 million refugees have chosen to stay in the country. The Eastern European nation has accepted 10 times as many refugees as Britain. That isn't surprising, to say the least. The ugly side of Brexit has shown us that the UK isn't quite as welcoming anymore. But for Poland, the decline in population growth and the aging working class are 2 major structural problems that immigration can solve. Poland indeed has some very particular immigration policies. However, since Ukrainians have political and ethnic ties with the Poles, they were able to find a permanent home in the country. Don't confuse Polish generosity with foolishness, though. If anything, the Polish government is navigating the war in Ukraine quite smartly. But so far, despite its very pro-Ukrainian stance, Poland has made a few things clear. It will prioritize its economy and people over everybody else. Recently, certain Eastern European nations like Poland, Slovakia, Romania, and Hungary refused to buy grains and wheat-based products from Ukraine to boost local agricultural production. Of course, Ukraine wasn't happy. Cheap products from a war-ridden country would have also mitigated the recent waves of inflation in Poland. Everyone loves cheap stuff, right? But Poland took a calculated decision to ban the Ukrainian products to support the strong agricultural lobby back home. The government wants to navigate the trajectory of self-reliance and self-security, and that means boosting local agricultural production and lowering the import bill. After all, the government has bigger and far more important expenses, like buying a fleet of F-35 Lightning II aircraft and 116 Abrams tanks. That's right, other than boosting its economy, Poland is busy amplifying its military prowess. Poland's growing military arsenal. As a strategic member of NATO, the Poles have picked up a couple of heavy battles, but their biggest and most imminent threat comes from Moscow, which has been very upset about the country's pro-Ukrainian stance. Vladimir Putin has built a habit of threatening Poland with military action. While the country has the power of the EU and NATO on its side, it is on its way to becoming one of the biggest military powers in the continent itself. And well, it has to take these strong measures. Poland's geographical position is both a blessing and a curse. It knows that while it is well connected to its Western European allies, it is pretty near to Russia as well. It wasn't shocking when Poland increased its military spending from 2.5% of the GDP to 4% in 2023. This sort of defense budget allocation makes the country one of the biggest top guards in NATO. In comparison, major military powers like the UK, France, and Italy only agreed to boost their defense budgets by 2%, as per NATO's target. While you can argue that even these numbers are insanely large, the growing threat from Russia is hardly casual. The war in Ukraine has taught Poland some hard-hitting lessons. German reluctance to deploy tankers to the war zone showed the Poles that they could only rely on themselves when it came to the Russian offensive. Their only way out is to build a military arsenal that is self-reliant and fast. No wonder Poland is making moves to double the size of its army, which consists of 300,000 men as of now. Poland isn't just talking numbers, it is talking major upgrades too. In the coming years, Polish soldiers will utilize highly sophisticated Western kits. Plus, Poland is also spending at least $10 billion on the American-produced HIMARS artillery system that proved to be Russia's biggest nightmare on Ukrainian soil. It is expected that the Eastern European power will purchase 468 HIMARS rocket systems. But this is not the only expensive purchase that Poland has made. The country is also spending billions of dollars on buying 1,000 K2 Black Panther main battle tanks from South Korea. By 2025, the country will have 182 K2s in its arsenal, while the rest of the 820 tanks will be delivered within the next 10 years. The next 2 years will be crucial for the Polish government. After all, its military upgrades will raise the country's military arsenal to new heights. Its firepower is going to be bigger than the UK, France, Germany, and Italy combined. As long as Poland keeps boosting its economy, it will have spare cash to spend on its defense budget. And by the looks of it, it is doing pretty well to protect its borders. Found this video interesting? Give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends.